Okay, hello. It's Paul Green from the business community with another one of our spotlight on interviews. Put my teeth in, which looks at people's business journey, really, how they came to where they are today. So today I'm joined by Neil Wattam. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Paul.
So before we dive in and probe you and prod you, do you want to do a quick introduction, let people know who you are and what you do?
Yes, thanks, Paul. So my name's Neil Wattam from WKM Wealth Limited. We're an independent financial advisor and investment management business set up in 2020, so not too long ago, by four friends. We're here to help people with their personal wealth and hopefully help them have a comfortable future.
Okay, thank you very much. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get into the finance world and how did you end up setting up this partnership?
As quite a lot of, I'm sure your visitors here have said, quite a varied journey. I started off actually in design back at university. I really enjoyed it, but can't draw, which is a bit of a problem when you're designing. Having said that, I liked IT and then did some work in IT and then went to work for Boots in the purchasing department. Thought, business, that seems like a good thing. So I then became an accountant. I thought, well, design, accountancy is clearly the route to go. So I am a chartered accountant, sort of first. I did that training down in Hertfordshire for 5 years or so. Worked for Tesco, so PLC, big companies, and then worked for Capita, a big outsourcing firm. So I've been a chartered accountant working in big corporates for a long time, which was fine, but generally quite stressful, quite hard. But I quite liked the treadmill that I was on. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed it to a degree. But then it was one Christmas. I was sat with my brother in his house and he was talking about the potential of starting something. And I was a bit like, oh, how can I get involved? What can I do there? And it was fairly obvious that the size of the business probably never needed what I did. Mm-hmm. However, I thought, well, actually, I really want to be a part of something like that, especially with my brother. And therefore, I thought, well, I want to do this. Didn't know too much about it at the time. Roll forward about 15 months or so, maybe. So then to April 18, and just had my second child after paternity leave. Decided, right, I'm off. Handed my notice in a day after paternity leave finished.
Right.
That summer of 2018 was a scorcher because I can remember it rather well. Mm-hmm. Sat in my room studying. So I then basically decided I was going to go in for this with the other guys, but had to study. So I quit, took the summer and did my exams with the Chartered Insurance Institute so I could do this role. Mm-hmm. Going back to study after a long time was challenging, especially with family. Yeah. But it became my job. My job was study. And, that's what I did. So I then passed those exams quite quickly, as it turned out, with a lot of hard work, and then went back to work doing some consulting for a bit, which was all good. And then roll forward to October 19. The four of us who are founding the business got together ultimately and applied to the FCA. Mm-hmm. And then 7 months later, in April 20, we got the green light eventually. So a variety of education, big corporate life, and actually just thinking, I want to do something that's ours and give it a go, because what's the worst that can happen was kind of, my decisions along the way have always been, what do I enjoy? What do I want to do next? And go for it. Not be too worried. It's easy to say with some hindsight, obviously, but I picked design because I enjoyed it. I thought, well, I want to do that. Yeah. I picked accounting because it seemed like a good idea. Give it a go. All right. And, so that's kind of my, I guess, a bit of a tip for people generally. That's not a tip, sorry, but my thought is just go for stuff. Don't overthink too much.
Yeah. Otherwise, you just sort of stay in one place for a long time, don't you? Which I guess a lot of people do. So there's two Wattams in a business, I guess, and a Kirby and a me. So were they financial advisor in the financial world before you got together, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so those three have all worked for, in some cases, larger corporates, some slightly smaller, but they all were in the industry before. And they knew each other from working at the same company. Obviously, me and my brother did slightly differently, but four of us have been friends on and off for 20 years, basically. But started off through employment and working together. But I was the one who's come from a slightly different background in terms of the accountancy finance route rather than financial advisory route. But yes, there's two Wattams, and it's the first time I've worked with my brother as well.
Okay.
Which, yeah, again, we didn't know how it would go. We don't, it's early days still now, but I think it's that go for it. It should work. We get on, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you obviously started in the midst of the first lockdown, I guess. So was that something that concerned you, or did you think, sod it, we'll just go for it anyway? Or what were your thoughts around that time?
More of the latter. I mean, to be honest, it took us a long time to work with the FCA to be authorised. So once we had the kind of green light and we were working towards it, it was a case of just go. We were online. We were going to launch online anyway because we didn't have an office, etc. So it was a case of we're ready to go. Let's go. No holding back. In a way, it's perhaps an advantage that we were ready, as opposed to a lot of firms and businesses out there that were not ready at all. To there's companies with desktops in their office. Well, if I'm going to come and get the desktops, does it work at home? That sort of stuff. We're ready. So it's a case of we just got to get on. We couldn't stop, couldn't wait.
And have you found people have been more conscious of their finances during this sort of pandemic that we've been going through, or is it about the same as it used to be, do you think?
I think certainly last year, because a lot of people did have time, whether it was the pandemic that made them think about their finances or just, it's been on the list, I've now got some time to look at that list and actually do something, then I think it was a good trigger. I guess there's quite a lot of talk in the media, as there often is, but there was quite a focus on people's ability to afford stuff and live. Other people have saved and, as it were, done quite well out of what's happened over the last 18 months financially. If they've worked from home, they've kept a good job, not spent a lot, kind of, what the media tends to say actually does ring true for quite a lot of people, not everyone clearly. So, it's probably given a bit more of a boost to that side of people's lives than there was before.
And across the four of you, do you specialize in anything, or do you pretty much all cover the sort of same range of services?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Ben Wattam, he's our investment director, and that's what he's always done. He's looked after billions of pounds for people and clients. So that's the brains behind the investment side. And that's what makes us slightly different, because firms of our size, we are quite small, ultimately. They don't have a Ben. Most people outsource it to a Ben who works for a bigger company. So Ben is our investment guy. He's the ideas man. And then we as a committee talk it through and that sort of stuff. So that's his specialism. That's what he does. And then the three others of us, Adrian, Tim, and myself, are client facing. But as in many smaller businesses, we all have our other hats, clearly. I look after our finances and kind of that side. Tim's our compliance director, and Adrian looks after sales and marketing as well. But in terms of client focus, we're all focusing on clients ultimately. But Tim and Adrian have spent quite a lot of their careers as well looking after corporate pensions, often for smaller companies where there might be 2, 3, 4 people. They might have a property in it, for example. So there's a bit of elements of specialism that's come from their historical work. In terms of going forward, you actually work on quite similar kind of cases now, because we don't want to work for everyone or with everyone. It's people who really need our help, and we can help them. If we can't help them, then we can't. We're not going to try and bend everything to help someone.
So who would be a sort of like ideal sort of client for you then? Who do you ideally look to work with?
I guess if there was a utopian client, it would be someone who's perhaps sold a business, maybe, I don't know, 40s, 50s, even 60s, depending on where they are with that. And, they've realized a decent sum of money. Maybe they've already got some decent pensions and wealth accrued, and they basically need some help. We had some very recent cases of people selling their businesses for tens of millions. Whether they've got it all yet or not doesn't matter, but they've got a serious amount of wealth. They just need some help. Some people come into money quite suddenly and have no idea what to do. Some people have built it over time. You might be someone who's worked in a corporate life all your life, and you've just put money into pensions, and you've got to, I don't know, in your 50s, and you've gone, probably should look at that now. And again, you might be sat on, I had someone the other day call me and was like, do you think I'm doing all right? I'm like, yeah, this guy had 650k plus in his pensions. He had 9 pensions, I think it was. He didn't really know, despite being well-earning, clever chap, but he just had no idea about it all. So, it's people, we typically work with people who have accrued a decent amount of wealth and need some help to source it for the future. We do work with people who are perhaps earlier in their careers. It's not typically younger, but often is. But that tends to be just a bit of a handhold type thing, maybe get them started, because the world of finance can be quite daunting. There's a lot of jargon, as there is in most industries, obviously, but just we do work with some people like that, but typically it's couples or families who have, later on in their lives, perhaps.
Okay, excellent. So I asked these people, you people, us, what your sort of like why is, sort of what drives you and sort of like gets you out of bed in the morning. So what would you say that is for you, Neil?
I think there's a couple of things, but one is to help people. We're here to help. We're here to help educate. We're here to, if they wake up and thinking, oh, I've got a question about this, or this has happened at work, or something's happened in the family. Oh, who can Neil, I can speak to Neil or Adrian or Tim or Ben. You can just pick up the phone. We're here. We're not, not going to be put on hold. So, if you want to speak to us, people speak to us. That's why I get out of bed. That's what I love doing. It's helping people. Having come through a corporate career of, yes, sort of helping people, but it's been very arm's length to be being here every day for our clients and potential clients just to help them. But obviously we want a good life as well. We set up this business to enjoy our work. Our little strap line of enjoy the journey works for clients and us and anyone who works with us. We don't want to come to work dreading it or dreading speaking to someone. So we have a rule number 1 violation. If someone you can pick a choice word, but if they violate some of our rules, we won't work with them. That whether they are, a potential client or a supplier or anything, we want to work with nice people ultimately. So, our why is work with nice people, do a good job, earn a living, keep it simple.
So I must have got in by the skin of my teeth then, Neil, I'm guessing.
Debatable.
So you touched on it earlier, but you might want to elaborate on it. What would you say makes you different from your competitors?
Yeah, I mean, there is clearly a lot of financial advisors out there, often amongst the networking communities as well. But, the things that make us stand out are we are independent. We're completely independent, and we are authorized directly by the FCA. Doesn't mean we're any better. It just means it's us. We make the decisions. We make the investment decisions. So, and our money's in this thing. So what we tell clients and what we advise is what we do. So, it's not a standout thing that's different to everybody. But if you come to us and people work with us, it's because we're doing what we say we'll do. And we do the things for clients. It's not to try and feed them sales and marketing team in London HQ, or someone's making decisions on your investments who never met you.
Yeah.
It's us, and you're dealing with the people who make the decisions and want to see it grow for both clients and ourselves, because it's win-win. It's not win for other shareholders. It's not, you're not paying dividends out to some randoms. It's for us and for the future of our clients as well. So, I think that sort of independence and small mindset is a real differentiator. But also Ben, I did mention him earlier, in terms of his expertise. Most firms do not have a Ben like. I mean, he's not always going to get it right. He's not always going to pick everything right. But nonetheless, his experience is quite different. And a lot of people have come to work with us because of Ben. But markets go up and down. So, what we're trying to do is marry up the Ben's expertise with the planning side, which is where me, Tim and Adrian come in, because together that should hopefully generate the best returns and outcomes for clients over X years. So it's kind of our approach is what makes us a bit different. But ultimately, a lot of similar businesses say they'll do the best for clients. But I would suggest some are not wholly in it for the clients.
Yeah. So I'm guessing if I'm hearing it correctly, you're sort of like creating bespoke portfolios for your clients, as opposed to just going to buy an off-the-shelf package, that I guess often other financial advisors do. Would that be sort of pretty much a good summary?
It is, yeah. And there's a technicality called discretionary investment management, which basically means we have the authority, assuming clients agree, to make decisions on their behalf on the investments. We don't write to people and go, Paul, we think you should do this. And you might not get the letter. You might sit back and wait. You might go, what on earth is Neil talking about? And the opportunity may have passed, or you've missed out. We do that change. Or recently the markets have been quite volatile. We have the permissions to go in and make changes and do stuff to react quickly. Hopefully we've foreseen stuff, but no one's got a crystal ball. So it's our ability and our permissions, which not everyone could do, that hopefully makes those little improvements over time. And you're right, we can build completely bespoke stuff for clients and run it, and they'll never know what's going on in terms of in the background, because that's what they're paying us to do. As opposed to us writing to people and going, oh, we've made one change. All right, okay. We're being proactive. Not a lot of people who outsource it, they might not know what's quite going on.
No, I certainly get that. I think a lot of people may have a financial advisor, and I guess they just trust in that person to do the right thing. But often, I think most people's stuff is just stuck in one place. And even though the market goes up and down, most financial advisors will be all right in the end, 10 years, 20 years down the line. But of course, there's potential losses on the way if you're not sort of shifting the money or the investments about to make the most of whatever the market conditions are at the end of the day, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. And like I said, having Ben, that's what he does. He's every day is looking, researching, reading, talking to people, as opposed to trying to work with clients to work out what they're doing with the pension. And then, I need to go and listen to some fund manager talking, or, that's what he does. And we just marry it all up together. Again, it's not to say he's always going to be better, but our theory is being proactive. We've got a little graph which shows where we're making changes throughout periods. And, you might go for a month or two and do nothing. But the way the last 18 months has worked is that everything has changed beyond recognition, often in the investment world. So we have to react quite quickly and to what's changing. Like the last month has been particularly volatile. Doesn't mean it's good or bad, just has. Some things we've changed, some things we haven't.
It's just getting that balance, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah.
So I guess it's worth pointing out. So independent means that basically you've got that flexibility to invest wherever you like. Whereas I guess there's other financial advisors that are restricted to their own products. Is that the basic distinction, that they haven't got that flexibility? They have to sell their own portfolio.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, okay. Right. We obviously sort of touched on the pandemic earlier. I guess for most businesses, that has been the biggest challenge over the last sort of 18 months, 20 months. So what would you say outside of that has been the biggest challenge for you guys in setting up your business?
I think the biggest challenge was getting going. I mean, the FCA, because like I said, we are directly authorized. There's a lot of businesses that are what's called in our industry an appointed representative, which basically means you kind of piggyback off their compliance and their process. Being direct means that we are on the line. So, it's us, it's our risk. And to get there was very, very hard. So the challenge and that's why we ended up going live in April, because we didn't choose it. We didn't ask for it. It was like, that's the earliest we could effectively get going. So I think the challenge of getting launched, because, in our industry being so heavily regulated, and for the right reason, and it's good to see that actually the FCA and other regulators probably are being so thorough. And, despite us all having lots of years of experience, and in theory on paper should be almost a rubber stamp, we might have thought, it's actually very difficult. And that's why a lot of people don't do it. Or they go into that sort of blanket umbrella of the AR route, which is fine. But I think that was our biggest challenge by a long way. But it did give us that early kick, whether we needed it or not. But, having that sort of stumbling block or bit of difficulty early doors, as opposed to having it, I don't know, a couple of years in and it's scaring the bejesus out of you, was possibly a good thing. I think we look back at it positively, albeit at the time it was horrific.
I bet. Yeah.
challenges since then are, I guess, thinking about our growth and how we grow, because we're now, because of the way we're set up, we're considering how we can expand without growing our team necessarily. We don't want to be a big company, but we've got a lot of expertise and capabilities. Again, without keep pointing at Ben, the investment side we could offer to others potentially. So we're now, our challenge is almost how do we keep growing without making us a team of X number of people, because we've left corporate worlds and managing people because that's not what we do. That's not what we want to do. So that's I guess our next challenge.
Yeah. Well done getting through that. I can imagine the trauma that you must have gone through, and I understand why a lot of financial advisors will just go for an umbrella organisation who have taken all that hit. They just operate underneath that. So, how often would the FCA sort of come in and just sort of like test you or check that everything's in order? Is that an annual thing, or is it just an ad hoc thing, or do you just not? Could they tip up tomorrow, sort of thing? And you just got to, how does it work?
It is ad hoc. I think it's ultimately on a kind of a risk basis. But we use 2 compliance firms to help us. One being quite a big company, one being a local lady who that's what she does. So we kind of got a bit of a big brother mothership that knows a bit more in touch, more arguably with the FCA's, maybe got a bit more of a direct line. And we've got someone who's more on the ground who knows us and knows what we do, how we work. So together we're trying to make sure we're as compliant as we can be. So then when the regulator does, because it is a when, not an if. When they come, we've done as much as we can to make sure what we're doing is in line with what, because it's ever changing as well. It doesn't stand still. Again, in a good way, in a way, but it is a big burden on a small business. But we've got to be ready, and we've got to do the right thing for clients. But if that's our drive, is doing the right thing for clients, which hopefully is in line with the FCA ultimately want. So we do the right thing for clients, tick the right boxes, do the right thing, right processes. But it is a sizable drain on our time, which is fine. You go into this thing eyes wide open, but nonetheless, I think it might be surprising for non-regulated businesses to realize in a regulated world quite what that is.
And obviously
without
sure, because the onus is on you also to, don't you have to have so many hours of CPD, continuous professional development, during the year as well? How do you sort of manage that?
So we're actually, funnily enough, talking about that yesterday, because there's an online system we use with that side, the little badge up there. We're a member of the Chartered Insurance Institute, and they have their own sort of systems and stuff. So we just plug into that effectively for learning and go on road shows and just try and keep eyes and ears open to keep ourselves current. Exams as well. I'm still doing exams. We all are, because whilst it's not that much fun, actually it can be very useful, and it forces you to take time away to do it. So, it's a mixture of all sorts, but you're right. That's another thing we have to do. But it's a good thing that it's forced upon us, because it keeps us in touch with, regulatory changes or latest thinking on things or the trends, that sort of stuff.
Barney's asked a question on LinkedIn, so I don't know if you can see that and
I can
answer that.
I suppose yes is the short answer, but it's not something typically people come along to us for. But I know Adrian was actually having a conversation with a client yesterday who's trying to sell some properties, and they're struggling. So whether it's really a working capital question or not, but nonetheless, people do come to us, say, I need to do this. I want to do this. My business is doing this. Do you know anyone? It's a bit like working with accountants. When people think of numbers and finance, they think of either an accountant or perhaps a financial advisor often. Whether it's personal or whether it's their business. And we do work in a bit of a triangle with accountants and clients. So in an ideal scenario, if someone had that question, wanting some additional capital or something, then we might say, yes, well, let's have a chat with your accountant as well, and have a 3-way sort of conversation, rather than just a yes or go and speak to Dave down the road, because there might be another question that's really driving it, rather than yes, here's someone who can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you charge? What's your sort of model for charging clients for the services you provide?
So we basically charge a percentage of their investment, because most clients with us, we do their investments. So not everybody, but most, 90 whatever 8%. So we basically take a percentage of their assets. So as it grows, hopefully our fee base grows as well. But we don't charge anything over and above. It's basically a percentage of what you've got, and then that's kind of it. So there are other firms out there that will charge, to phone, have a meeting, or ring up, or you're on the clock. It's kind of, you pay your fee. You may or may not see it, as it were, because it's kind of trickling in the background. But we're always up front. When people come to work with us, it's like, here's what you'll pay. It's not the same for everyone, because there is a treating customers fairly, which is one of the FCA's fundamental principles. So we can't go and charge someone differently just because they're different. We have to treat them fairly, and the fair does not mean the same either. So, the fee and cost in our industry is always a bit of a hot potato. And there's a lot in the media about, is it worth the cost? And people highlight in the media, again, the cost of advice. Well, yeah, there is a cost, because you're paying some professionals who are doing what we've already talked about every day. Yes, there's a fee. But it's transparent, and we try and be upfront about it all. But again, there's smokes and mirrors. People can say, "Oh, we charge this." Well, does it include that? Does it? Why, if I do want a meeting? Oh, yeah, well, there'll be a fee, and it
can add up, can't it?
It can, absolutely can.
Yeah.
I mean, not trying to be the cheapest either, though. It's about generating a fair income for us commercially, but something that represents value.
Yeah. And if your clients are seeing, the value of their portfolio going up, I guess ideally outside of the market averages, then they're going to be happy, aren't they?
They are, but we're really keen to emphasize that it's the joined up planning. So it's all very well. Markets will hopefully over time go up, but they'll do this along the way. So if you're still making the most of your pensions and your various allowances, then markets hopefully will go up. But if you're doing the right planning, then if the market stood still forevermore, then you're doing the right thing to make sure you're in the right spot. Because that's something you can control. You can control what you do. You can't control the markets.
No, it's absolutely. So you've kindly agreed to share some of your vast knowledge with us today, Neil. So I'm going to hand over the floor to you, as it were, and just sort of get a few tips from you. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Paul. So I've just read a few notes, but what I wanted to, talk about was just, keeping it simple. I kind of alluded to earlier that personal finance is a complicated world, complicated topics. And I think some people overthink it, or you read the media and you think, oh, I should I be in crypto, and or speculative investments, or will I lose my money? Is it risky? There's all sorts of stuff going on out there. But for most of our clients, you can keep it pretty simple. So I thought I'd just run over a few sort of the basics that we talk about with our clients, and we typically help them manage. So the kind of three buckets that I would tend to talk about with clients, and maybe not number one, but number one for a lot of people is pensions. So just to cover a few basics, it's really about saving tax now and saving money for your future. The state pension age is going, well, it's increased in recent years, and who knows what it'll do in future. But by the time most people get to state pension age, I think that's later than they would like to be retiring. So, they need some sort of private provision for whether that's the time between hanging up the boots at 55, 60 or 50 or whenever it is, and that state pension for them and maybe their spouse. So, you need a personal pension. You're saving tax now. Some people will be on thresholds of earnings just above 50K for child benefit starts to get taken away, and above 100K, you start to lose your personal allowance, which is the element of tax-free income. So there's a couple of thresholds that people are worth being aware of, and a great top tip there of making pension contributions effectively reduces your income for those measures. So if you're earning 105,000, bringing your income to below 100,000 by using pension contributions just minimizes your tax at that rate, by the way, of the earnings, you're effectively paying a 60% tax on some of your earnings, which is not something anyone wants to do. So, use pension contributions to your advantage. The personal allowance and income tax thresholds have been frozen by the Chancellor for 5 years. So it's, if you get a pay rise, you're effectively paying more tax for the next 5 years. So just think about your pension contributions. For some people who are perhaps higher earners, you can make quite a lot of pension contributions as a value, potentially going back 3 tax years. So people tend to think of pensions as something that's, they don't need to worry about for a long time. My suggestion is you pay attention to them now, look at what's going on, use them to your advantage from a tax perspective. It's not all about tax, but if you can save some tax and help your future self, then what's not to like about that? There are also inheritance tax, which some people care about, some people don't. Pensions are effectively outside of that for inheritance tax. So they're a very good, sort of planning tool as well for giving legacy amounts to whoever you want. ISAs are the second one, so individual saving accounts. They are a use it or lose it. So if you don't make any contributions in a given tax year, you can't go back, whereas pensions you potentially can. So I guess my point is, even if interest rates at the moment are pitiful and will probably be low for some time, don't think that you shouldn't be putting money into ISAs. Cash ISAs are probably where, I don't know what percentage of the UK's savings are in, but cash ISAs are generally quite popular despite the interest rates. Stocks and shares ISAs are also good for the future, and depending on what you want your money for, of course. There's a lifetime ISA, so if you're under 40, get applying, get a lifetime ISA. There's a few rules and stuff which I can talk about whenever with people, but you have to open them before you're 40. But the point is with ISAs, get some money in, even if it's in cash, but at least it's within that tax wrapper, such that as and when rates pick up or you invest it and you get some growth, it's completely tax-free. You could use your ISAs, when you're older, to generate a tax-free income. It's a really good planning method to supplement your income when you're older, or any time for that matter, but particularly when you're older and you want some extra income or some money to go and pay for that cruise. Then you can just take it out. There's no issue, no tax, and hopefully over the years you'll see some growth. And then the sort of final little third, I suppose, bucket, and it's I alluded to earlier about people coming into money, whether that's, say, a business sale or inheritance or some shares perhaps they've sold. A general investment account utilizes some additional allowances you have, such as capital gains tax allowance and dividend allowances. So a general investment account allows you to invest in the stock market and hopefully make some money over time using some tax allowances. So I guess my general point is you have sort of 3 buckets there. They're simple. Everyone can do them. Everyone can open them. Everyone can use them. Even children, they can all have all these accounts as well. You have allowances, tax allowances. Use them. Don't just get into the next year and think, I'll do it then. Have a look, pay attention, and get some money into them if you can. Don't need to go too crazy with speculative investments or cryptos, or we get asked all the time, or even property. Why? Just think of, can I sell that brick or a brick of a property investment in a few years? No, you can't, or not very easily, rather. So use these simple vehicles now and make the most of them. And then hopefully in 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you'll look back and be very grateful to your younger self. So I think that's my little spot.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm trying to encourage my niece and nephews to look at these sorts of things now, get life cover out now, get the health insurance out now, look at investments now, because certainly at their age, they're 20 somethings, that some of those products will be cheaper than they will be if they leave it longer in their life and medical issues start to come up. So yes, I'm trying to encourage them to be a bit more proactive in that area. So one final thing, then your ordeal will be over, Neil. If you were to give one top tip for business, as one small business owner to another, what would that top tip be?
I guess the top tip from a sort of, from my sense, from a financial perspective, is talk to your accountant or financial advisor about how you're extracting money and what you're doing. So your overall remuneration from a business, pension contributions, all the stuff I've just been talking about as well. But just think ahead. Is your spouse involved or not? What's the shareholder structure? So I guess don't just think, oh, it's my business, therefore it's all my money. You try and think of it a bit broader and just have a strategy for that. To your point, we are a small business. We have a strategy as the four of us of how we are going to earn from the business ultimately. But we're not doing it blindly. We're not just thinking, oh, we'll just take that or just do that. There's a strategy. We talk about it regularly and we talk about it with our accountant. So my top tip is don't just think what your mates told you or what you've always done is the best way. Talk to people, talk to peers, I would be happy to share what we're doing with anyone for that matter, because it's not secret. It's just a way of doing it. And it's not necessarily the best for everyone, but I guess it's just thinking ahead and don't just think, oh, I'm the owner, therefore all the dividends or all the stuff is mine. Because there'll be a lot of people potentially watching this that are effectively one man, one lady bands, one person bands, and they've never thought about it. So top tip is think, talk, and don't just think what you've done is the right way, because it might be, but inevitably I hear too many conversations, I have too many, and it's like, oh, you could be doing this, you could be doing that. It's not going to change the world probably, but don't just aimlessly wander along. And I'm not saying people do, but there'll be a lot that do.
Some do. Yeah. I think I was, to an certain sense, a few years ago. I met Rob Harris, who who gave me some financial education. I became better informed, and then just sort of simply consolidating pensions that I thought, because they were years old and not done anything with them, wouldn't be worth much. But of course, because they're that old, they've accumulated over time. So it's quite surprising, the amount of money that actually sat in these corporate pensions from 20 years ago that obviously accumulated. So I guess there might be people out there that haven't even thought about, looking at their state of their pension, what they're worth, is it worth consolidating, etc., etc. Definitely worth having a conversation with someone that's in the know.
Yeah, I think pension contributions are the big point of that. It's people tend to think of salary, dividends. Well, pension, it's so tax efficient, as I always bang on about, and particularly from a company perspective, because your company can make it on your behalf up to 40 grand a year, irrespective of what you're earning. Hopefully the business is. But there's lots of things they could be doing that might not be so obvious.
Yeah. Right, Neil, thank you very much. Very informative, very interesting to sort of learn how you got to be in the business you are today. And, it sounds like between the four of you, you're doing something quite innovative versus a lot of financial advisors out there. So
we're trying.
Good luck with it all.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for talking.